Oh, it says
What's
recording.
going on? What's going on? What's going on? Today is April 1st, 2019, and if you are listening or watching, you are listening and watching the Marston Brothers podcast. How's everybody doing this fine evening?
April Fools!
April Fools.
What are you calling an April Fool?
It's
You
April
April.
1st. April Fools. Happy April Fool's Day.
Now, the MBPers might be confused because it's a Tuesday and we're podcasting on a no, it's a Monday and we're podcasting on a Monday, so you guys must really
On
be
a
confused.
Tuesday.
But we figured that we were free earlier this week, so we wanted to knock out an episode right now so that we wouldn't mess up. And also, we got Marceline cubed again.
Yes, very nice, very nice.
I think we should continue this. I like this. I like seeing the two of you guys on my screen, and I'm glad that we were able to make it work again.
Cool.
Every week, take it week by week, see what we can do.
All right, did anybody get pranked today on April Fools?
Nah. Too old for that, man.
How
Those
about
days are
yourself?
over.
Anything crazy happen to you?
Well, Rod tried to prank me April Fools by sending me a text that Colin Kaepernick was going to the Dolphins. And as soon
I
as he
saw that on Facebook. I saw that all over Facebook.
so he
Ah.
so he sent it to me and I said, "Man, I'm not letting anybody get me on April Fools. What is this?" And then he said, "Yeah, I almost got you, didn't I?" Nope, not on April 1st. I'm not going to be that guy. Not me. Not at all.
That's funny.
Not today.
Did you guys see any interesting April Fool pranks?
No, I've just been at work, so I have not seen anything. That'd be a bad April Fool's prank at work.
I think I saw on ESPN how Tom Brady joined Twitter and he made an announcement saying that he was retiring from football or something like that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know how many people would be so happy about that though?
That'll
Everybody
never
would
happen.
be celebrating.
That would never happen. Only one small borough would be upset.
Oh man. So let's start off. Marvin, how'd your week go? How'd your weekend go?
Weekend was great. You guys remember Ruben Studdard?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. American Idol.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
American, the real American Idol.
For
Was he
sure,
the
for
second
sure.
season?
It
Second
was
Or what
second
season.
season
season
was
with
he?
Clay Aiken, right? And Clay Aiken beat
Yeah,
him.
yeah. No.
Stop
What?
it! Don't even start.
April Fools. But anyways, I saw him in concert, and he's fantastic. His voice is spot on and very clear, and it was beautiful. Keswick's Theater up in Pennsylvania. So it was a really good time. Brought my wife. It was great. And another thing I wanted to mention, uh, this was an event sponsored by Jefferson Health Network. So this is one of the hospital networks up in the Northeast, and there's a campaign called Save Your Souls. The souls spelled SOLE. So basically, black men are losing limbs at a tremendous rate in comparison to the other counterparts, and we were trying to bring diabetes awareness and doing some foot screening. So it was a community outreach program that I was also associated with. So Dr. Ron Renzi was running the show. It was a great experience, and you know, shout out to him and the Save Your Soul campaign.
You're cool. What's going on with you, Christopher?
That's
How was
good.
your weekend?
Good. My weekend was good. Worked a little bit this weekend. Got to relax a little bit, hang out with the family. So it's always good whenever I can squeeze that in. So it was good. How about yourself? What'd you do? Anything special this weekend?
Gosh, I can't even remember what I did this weekend so bad. I
A day ago?
I did yard work. I yeah, I mowed the lawn, I think over the weekend. Then I ended up trying to repair my sprinklers. When you guys have lawns and you don't have HOAs covering it, so my water bill's been getting higher lately, and I was trying to diagnose the problem. What I noticed is that there's like a puddle around one of my sprinkler heads, the closest one to the street. So ended up changing out the sprinkler head, and then I realized that there was a crack in the pipe. So I ended up changing out just a piece of pipe that connects the rubber hose pipe to the actual sprinkler head itself. So I was able to play around with that a little bit. And then the grocery shopping, ended up doing laundry. So just the normal routine. Can't complain. Can't complain.
Cool.
All right. So for this episode of the MBP, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing our current events. So, audience, if you are new to the MBP team, what we like to do is one week we like to talk about current events, and another week we like to talk about a topic of ours, and it could be anything and everything. So, this week we are going to be doing the current events. With that being said, Christopher, why don't you lead us? What is your story, and let's talk about it.
So when I first saw my story, my first thought was, well, it is April 1st. Do I believe this? Is this a real story? Is this an April Fool's story? What's going on? I'll just read the headline. They're very good at grabbing your attention with this headline. To help gay son, 61-year-old woman gives birth to own grandchild. I read that and I just stopped and thought about it, and I was like, that was an impressive amount of information they packed into one headline. Just lots of keywords, but I was really impressed with 6-year-old woman gives birth to her own grandchild. So basically, it forced me to click on the link to the article and read exactly what was going on.
Was that clickbait? Did you just get clickbait?
It was an interesting topic, so I would say kind of yes, it worked. It got me to click on it, but I was impressed with the article. So basically, what's happening is, I guess just this past week, a 61-year-old woman gave birth to a gestational surrogate for her son and his husband. So basically, there was a couple, Matthew and Elliot. They wanted to have a child. They wanted their own biological child. The sister-in-law agreed to contribute the egg. So it would be Matthew is one male, and then Elliot's sister would give up the egg, and then they were going to find a surrogate for the child. After quite a while, quite some time of trying to find a surrogate, they kind of lost hope. Also, it was a confusing process for them to navigate through, and they were kind of concerned that being a gay couple, that it wouldn't happen in Nebraska. This took place in Nebraska. So they were stumped, and they couldn't find a surrogate, and then um, Matthew's mom actually volunteered to be the carrier, and they kind of laughed, said, haha, you've been postmenopausal, it's not going to happen. And then they kind of thought about it a little bit. The mom went to the doctor, was given a clean bill of health, and they actually did this uh, very, very extensive, interesting thing. So they had host being the husband and the sister-in-law, and they put it together. And then the mom, the baby's grandma, was the carrier, the surrogate. So they had their little family. It's very interesting. So the article obviously had keywords to draw your attention, but kind of where I want to focus is the amazing things. What kind of doors does this open in the future in terms of people giving birth, people having kids? Um, Seems like the options are limitless. If now you open the door to you no longer have to be childbearing age, you can get someone over the age of 50 who's just willing to carry the child for you, that this opens a door to endless amount of possibilities. Just it's very interesting how far science has taken us and what we're able to do.
Me not being the physician in the group, help me understand how this works, because I understand that when you are in childbearing age, you've got hormones, and your hormones, you're producing eggs, and that's how you're able to go through that process. And I'm assuming that when you go through menopause, that means you're not producing eggs anymore, and because of that, then supposedly you're not in childbearing age anymore. But
So,
how does it work with regards to carrying a fetus? Don't
so
hormones come into that?
So basically, the uterus is the house that the fetus grows up in, and really comes down to is the oocytes, the eggs, are what determine if you're childbearing age or not. Women have their normal menstrual cycle. That's all about getting the eggs to the luteal phase, getting them to kind of pop up, and then make their way down to the fallopian tubes to the house, the uterus, and they kind of implant, and the uterus kind of gets ready for a baby every month. And then if the baby doesn't happen, it gets rid of everything and starts all over again. So when you go through menopause, you lose your intrinsic rhythm, if you'd say, to kind of get the house ready, and the eggs no longer are coming out. The eggs may not be functioning, the eggs may not be coming out, they may have stopped coming out, but you never tore down the house. You never demolished the house. You never demoed it. So basically, what they do is they can give you hormones that are basically coming into the house and giving the house a redo. That 1960s kitchen is now the open concept, ready for a new tenant to move in and grow up in. House is still there, just a little old. The doctors come in with hormones and they renovate the place and get it ready for someone else to move in. That's basically how they do it.
And I guess
Wow.
they're using whenever they're doing their
Exogenous
blood
hormones. I don't
samples.
know. Yeah, it's similar to how people are surrogates anyways, because they almost kind of make a fake menopause to where they make it so whoever's a surrogate shouldn't be having their own eggs at that time, and then they get the house ready. So it's a very similar procedure to how they do it for someone of childbearing age to begin with anyways. So they just apply it to someone who's no longer having their own native eggs. Come down monthly.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I'm just amazed at the fact that, like you were mentioning, it changes the way that I think about childbearing and childbearing age, and it's well said how you just broke it down and you put it into layman's terms. I really do appreciate it. I think a lot of the listeners will be able to appreciate that as well, and to follow and to understand exactly what you're saying. So kudos to you. Awesome.
So my question is, the couple was very happy. Um, One of the husbands said that they looked at their daughter and it looked just like their mom who passed away. They have that familial bond. It actually is their family. It's both their DNAs in this child. How is this going to impact adoption? Are less people going to be wanting to adopt? Are more people going to be wanting to have their own kids? Just what are some future implications of this procedure happening, being alive and real? So I'm not familiar, but it sounds like there's a lot of red tape to go through for alternative couples to adopt children. Is this going to end up ultimately hurting the children that need to be adopted out there? What are we looking at?
It's a very, very good and thoughtful question. And to me, I think the answer is going to lie in the finances. I'm assuming that this is probably really expensive, far more expensive than adopting kids? Question mark.
I would have to do my research. It sounds like adopting kids also is pretty expensive. So I can't tell you dollar amounts if it's terribly more expensive or just a little more expensive. I feel like there's a lot that goes into adopting a kid. I've never applied or tried to do it myself, but I think it's a big to do.
Well, it says here, I'm looking this up on bankrate.com. When using a private agency to adopt a child, expect costs in the range of tens of thousands of dollars, with many adoptions costing an average from $20,000 to $40,000.
Yeah,
So,
and I feel like they also look through your finances and you have to have X amount in order to adopt someone. And with what this couple did is a huge amount of the price is actually paying the surrogate and paying for their health care. And since they use their mom, the article didn't mention that the mom charged anything, so they may have cut their prices in half. I think it's usually 40 to 50K just for
At
the
least.
part, not even the procedure of implantation, et cetera, et cetera.
Says here, the estimated cost to have a surrogate ranges between $90,000 and $175,000 depending on your circumstances.
Is that in total or just what the surrogate gets? Because I think it's 40, 45 to give to the surrogate and like 40 to 45 to pay for the procedure to actually place the fetus inside the surrogate. And maybe like if your insurance, somehow there has to be some sort of deal with paying for the insurance and housing and feeding during those 9 months.
So, cost to have a surrogate. Several factors contribute to the cost of a surrogate. These include donor egg costs, IVF costs or in vitro fertilization, surrogate compensation, insurance, surrogate agency fees, legal costs, pregnancy and postpartum care. So these are just the costs that go into that. So if you think about it, there probably isn't any surrogate compensation, perhaps, if we are looking at maybe a family member wanting to do it for another family member. So that might cut some things. Donor egg costs. So depending on, like what I'm reading here, it says in New Jersey, all surrogacy is performed with donor eggs so that there is no genetic link between the surrogate and the child. Now, in this case, maybe it's a little different, because there is going to be a relationship, but it does say that there are costs that include the cost of medication and egg retrieval plus donor compensation. So maybe you don't have to worry about the donor compensation, because I have heard that eggs are, because there's not an infinite amount of eggs in a person. I think everybody's born with a certain amount of eggs that they're going to have throughout their lifetime. So I think there is a cost to that. So maybe looking at this perspective, your donor egg costs aren't as much. They do have to do the IVF, like we talked about. We said that we probably don't have to worry about the compensation, or maybe as much of a compensation. It says here, insurance. Intended parents should purchase insurance to guard against unexpected events during surrogacy. So maybe that's something that's waived because it is family. So even though it said that 90 to 175, maybe it's closer to the 90,000 range. So then I guess the question is, and this is a question that each family has to think about, is do you want your child to be genetically related to you, or are you okay with adopting somebody? And of course, there's going to be pros and cons to that. Some people have a passion to adopt because of the fact that they want to make a difference in somebody's life who is less fortunate, and they feel that they could best give their time and energies in raising a child that's not theirs because they want to be able to help somebody else. So I think a lot of it is just going to depend on what your personal calling is. Sometimes you meet a child, you grow attached to the child, you think you can do something, and you decide that you want to help somebody who is alive and needs the help, versus, having a child of your own. Or maybe you're not able to have a child of your own for some reason. So I think it is a very interesting topic to discuss, and I think a lot of that depends on the personal situation of the individuals and what they're trying to do out of it. So I do agree with you there, Marvin.
And also, that's going to be one interesting conversation to have later on down the line. As far as you're my husband and sister, but came out of my mom. It's going to be interesting to explain.
When do you explain? Do you explain when they're younger so that you're not quote unquote keeping it from them? Do they understand what you're trying to explain to them? Do you wait until they're older? Do you risk the fact that they may find out and then they wonder why you didn't tell them in the first place? So I think a lot of these conversations that could come up based on how the person feels and how the person finds out, obviously it is a very sensitive subject. And I think that's part of figuring out when you want to tell them, because it does. I'm trying to think if I don't know. For me, I feel like I'm just happy to be alive. But if I was a part of that scenario, I guess it just depends on where I am in my life when I'm hearing that story for the first time. I don't know.
Is the sister your mom? Like, I don't know.
No.
I guess it all depends on how the child wants to perceive it.
Technically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or any other points you want to bring out of that conversation, Christopher?
No, that was it. Just something to think about. It's interesting to see where medicine's going and what the doors open allow us to, and what kind of every action there's equal opposite reaction. Opening Pandora's box. What are some unforeseen consequences that we just don't see right now that could be on later on down the line?
All right, Marvin, go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
All right. Let's switch it up a little bit. Some articles from USA Today. And the article reads, NASA will pay you $19,000 to stay in bed for 2 months.
I'm on my way. How do I sign up?
So the highlights of this story consist of you're basically going to be in bed for 60 days. And if you do this, you can make $19,000. You'll shower, you'll eat, you'll get dressed while laying down. And the whole point of the study is to replicate weightlessness. So they're essentially trying to figure out how to research the body with respect to the changes of weightlessness for the astronauts. At the end of the day, they're trying to figure out ways to make life, or to figure out what life would be like in space, the prolonged effects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to see what can be done. They want to develop techniques to reduce the negative effects of weightlessness on astronauts. So basically, during the 2 months, volunteers are going to live in a single room, but will be divided into groups. One group will be rotated around a centrifuge, similar to artificial gravity chamber, which will force blood back into the extremities. And the second group will not be moved. And, you know, I'm just really, 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 really curious. One, how do you come up with, these types of experiments? Number two, the type of person who would be willing to undergo this type of experiment. And then number three, will it truly be close to what it's like when you are an astronaut in space? It's crazy, the people are going to eat, exercise, get dressed, and even shower while laying flat on their beds. Can you do it? Could you actually do this if you decide, you know what, I'm going to take NASA on their offer. I'm going to allow myself to be a subject in this experiment, and I'm going to dedicate myself to science for 2 months and fulfill that 60-day challenge and make that $20,000 or $19,000 in the end. What do you think,
Absolutely
Junior?
not.
Oh, Christopher, would you be able to do it?
Absolutely not. I couldn't go 24 hours.
Really? 24
I
hours?
wouldn't be able to make it 24 hours. I would get stir crazy. I need to get up. I need to stretch my legs, walk around. Couldn't do it. Have you, just take the thought of it is similar to taking a long flight across the Pacific Ocean, some 19-hour flight. I would go crazy sitting there for the entire 19 hours. So I couldn't imagine laying in bed for 2 months.
But it's not like you can't do things that are intellectually stimulating. The studies never mentioned that. They'll keep you occupied throughout the time if you want it, what I'm assuming. It's just a matter of just getting up Anything else, everything else, all the normal processes you can undergo, but you just can't get up.
Nope, couldn't do it more than 24 hours. But that is a lot of money, though.
That 19,000 is a lot for 60 days. Wow. Junior, what do you think?
What's 19,000 divided by 60?
You know what? Great question.
I mean, we need to. I think it just depends on where you're coming from, because that's what, 10,000 a month. I mean, which isn't anything to sneeze at.
So
but that's 5,000 a paycheck.
You will make $316.67 a day.
Because you remember, you're not dividing that by 8, you're dividing that by 24. But at the same time, you don't get paid on your weekends off.
So basically, you're getting paid, sorry to cut you off, $13.19 an hour.
What if you divide that by 40 hours instead of 80 hours? Or 40 hours instead of 24 hours? Like a 40-hour...
It's $13.19 every hour for 60 days.
That's 24 hours. That's what I'm saying. But if you change that into like a 40-hour-a-week job,
I don't know.
All I know is I couldn't do it. I know that.
Yeah, now that I'm seeing it's $13 an hour, but this is over a span of 24 hours.
All right, so how much is it? It's 19,000 for 2 months.
Correct.
60 days.
Or 4 paychecks.
That's gonna be 9,500 a month. Divided by 2. That'll be $4,750 every 2 weeks. And if we divide that by 80, that's like $60 an hour if you're looking at it on a 40-hour work week. But like we said, you're not just doing 40 hours. I mean, you can really be mathematical and take out 8 hours. If you're trying to do it off of 24 hours, like what you were doing, you take out 8 hours because you're going to be sleeping anyway. So it's really out of 16 hours. So if you divide that by 16 hours, what is that dollar amount?
But are you really going to be sleeping 8 hours? After that first 3 days, I guarantee the amount you're sleeping is going down unless you have some sedatives.
All I know is So what was interesting to me when I read this article, says here, a previous study participant identified as Janja said that participation in the study was a very special and good experience for me. What surprised me the most, after a few days, my body got used to the bed rest. It was much easier than I had imagined. I did not get bored by many exciting experiments. On the contrary, time flew by. And then it says here that it's not like you're motionless and that you're just laying down the whole time. It does say here that people must eat, exercise, get dressed, and even shower while laying flat on their beds. So it's not like you're comatose and you can't move. It's just everything that you do, you're doing laying down. So that it's kind of like when you need to take a stretch, you take a stretch in your bed, but no, you can't stand vertically and you can't have normal blood flow. To say all that, again, I don't see myself being able to do something like that. Like, you can't stand up, you can't do any of that stuff at all.
It makes me want to stand up.
Yeah, Chris literally just now stood up and he did a couple of exercises because the study was just getting to his head, and he's like, you know what? Yes. Let me enjoy standing and stretching and doing a little movement with the utilization of gravity on my side.
I have to remind myself that I can stand.
Yeah, and being on bed rest, Leah was on bed rest, and she said after a couple of days, she couldn't do it anymore, and she was just bored out of her mind, and it almost hurt, and she wished that she could just get up because she couldn't do it. So I give a lot of respect to people who are on bed rest to do things. These individuals definitely deserve all the money they get, it's not as easy as people think it is. Would I do it for this amount? I don't think I would do it. Like it would have to be. I mean, it's not as easy. It's not easy money. You're gonna work for that money.
Yeah.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
Now, would I rather do this versus manual labor? I don't know. It's like two extremes, like beating yourself up and like being a roofer, beating yourself up, being on top of a roof for days in and days out throughout, or do I stay in bed, not move? It's like two totally different extremes.
I don't know if I can do it. Yeah, I probably would pass on it, to be honest with you. Too much going on in life to just disappear for 2 months.
But you are contributing to science, and I mean, as a podiatrist, I mean, you're giving back, you're contributing, you're helping, you're healing people. These individuals here are doing things to be able to, again, do studies on what body changes in weightlessness. So you would be contributing to a major science for society.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why you need to pay them well, because it ain't easy.
Mm.
It ain't easy.
Not gonna be me.
All right, so I was going back and forth between what article I wanted to read, and I think I want to do this one because I can't imagine it. So we're gonna go on. I guess this whole week we're not doing serious topics, but this is my topic here. British Airways apologizes to travelers after flight lands 525 miles away from destination. This is a USA Today news report. A British Airways flight from London to Germany accidentally took off in the wrong direction, landing 525 miles away in Scotland. The flight from London City Airport was supposed to head to Dusseldorf, Germany, but ended up in Edinburgh, Scotland instead, the total opposite direction. The airline said Monday the problem started when an incorrect flight plan was filed by WDL Aviation, which operates the flight on behalf of British Airways. Officials told the Associated Press that the pilot followed the flight plan for Edinburgh, and the air traffic control officials also were following the same flight plan and said nothing amiss. We are working with WDL Aviation, who operated this flight on the behalf of British Airways, to establish why the incorrect flight plan was filed, British Airways spokesperson Chip Gardner said in a statement to the USA Today. We have apologized to customers for this interruption to their journey and will deal with them all individually. Customers are en route to Dusseldorf currently. WDL Aviation also is investigating what went wrong. We are working closely with the authorities to investigate how the obvious unfortunate mix-up of flight schedules could occur, said WDL spokesperson Joachim Scotts. At no time has the safety of passengers been compromised. We flew the passengers on the flight with number BA3271 to Dusseldorf after the involuntary stopover in Edinburgh. One passenger, Son Tran, tweeted about his experience on the flight. Can you please explain how my morning flight taken off from LCY to Dusseldorf land in Edinburgh? While an interesting concept, I don't think anyone on board has signed up for this mystery travel lottery, Tran tweeted. British Airways responded with a tweet writing, "The flight has been diverted to Edinburgh. We don't have any information as to why at the moment. There is an estimated departure time of 10:20 from Edinburgh to make way to Dusseldorf. This feels like an honest mistake rather than a diversion," Tran responded. The crew was convinced of the Edinburgh flight path from the get-go.
Very, very.
I tried to keep a straight face and tried to keep my tone very professional when I was reading that, but how? It's like, you know how when you're on the plane and then you've got the person that says, "Hey, we're going to be going to this destination," and sometimes they joke around, they say something else, and everybody's like, huh, huh, huh? Like, I don't understand how you are a passenger. You've got what, 150, 200 people who are on their way to go to their destination, and they somehow get to the place 180 degrees total opposite of where they're supposed to go. Like if this is literally quote unquote the pilots were on autopilot.
Wow.
But that really is scary because supposedly if you're a degree off, you risk colliding with another plane in midair. So
Well, it sounds like the
we're lucky that
coordinates
it
and
was.
it sounds like the coordinates and everything were programmed. So it was literally air traffic control or whoever is in charge of laying the flight path down that made that mistake. Because the pilot, he's just following the directions that are set before him. I don't think the pilot really deviates off course, like ever. So he's always told what to do. Just like when you have your Google Maps and you plug in your destination, you just go the route Google Maps tells you to go, and that's that. I'm not a pilot, so I don't really know. This is how I'm assuming it works. So I can understand how the mistake has been transmitted, and who knows? Maybe the pilot was like, he probably gave you the right destination when he told it out loud, and then he's just following the coordinates and he's just following the path that that was set before him, and he was just flying the way that it told him to fly. So I could see how that mistake has transpired, and then I can also see how a scenario where nobody really mentions anything because maybe the pilot said the destination is Dusseldorf. However, the coordinates send them off to Edinburgh or whatever.
Is this clear? Can you see? No, I don't think it's that clear. You can't see.
Nah.
But essentially, when you look at a map of Europe, you've got the United Kingdom and you've got Germany. United Kingdom, you're going to have Scotland and England connected to each other. Germany is not even on the same. It's not like you're going from, hey, I'm supposed to be going to Fort Lauderdale and I went to Miami. Like, you're going to a totally different country. Like, you're skipping over multiple countries.
Right,
It's
but
like
it
when you're
depends
looking
on.
at the map, you're supposed to be going east. You're supposed to be going north and you go east. Like, even just looking at the compass, why am I going to go a totally different direction than that? Like, that's literally.
Yeah, they
when
didn't
you're
check. That means not once did they look at a compass.
like hey, this body of water isn't supposed to be here. Hey, this is taking a lot longer than it normally takes when I go here.
The
Like,
sun's supposed to be on the right side, but it's on the left.
that's what I'm saying. Hey, I'm flying over mountains. I normally don't fly over mountains. Like,
Yeah,
they
but that's.
flew.
Are you saying that the same pilot flies the same route every time, or do pilots
Yeah,
get
that's what I'm
interchanged
saying.
every time?
They
They have
fly
routes,
the
I feel
same
like.
route. They've flown even if they don't fly the same route every day. They've been doing it for years to where it's like it's usually the same crew who flies XYZ a couple times, maybe in a month at least. I don't know how often they do it, but they're based out of somewhere. They usually make the same 3 stops, and then they come back to their base.
So
And yes,
if you
I
were to,
get fine,
if you,
program something into a computer, but there's got to be some sort of critical thinking that lets you realize at least halfway through the flight, hey, I'm going the wrong way. I mean,
So,
it's not until you land in an airport and all of a sudden you're looking at signs and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't German. That's when you figure it out?
I agree with Marvin's synopsis of the turn by turn with Google Maps. Sure, if I put in the wrong turn by turn, it says make a left, I'm just going to make a left. But when I start seeing snow and I was headed to Miami and I see snow all of a sudden, I'm going to be like, something's off. I
well, let's
see
say you
snow.
figured it out halfway into the flight. Can you turn the plane around? I don't know if you
Yeah.
can. I
Why
don't.
keep going in the wrong direction?
You just need to go to the destination that your computer has been programmed to go, and then I think you do what they did, which is if you're I'm making up the scenario, but if you're halfway to the flight in the wrong direction, you might as well just land it safely in the destination of the wrong direction and then reconvene from there and then fly to where you need to go. Because do you have enough
exactly where
gas?
you are.
Huh?
Land at the closest airport then. Don't continue being wrong.
But that's going to be based on air traffic control, all these other outside, things that are telling you whether or not you can arrive where you need to go. So basically, Edinburgh, the coordinates are set. So they're probably saying, okay, you can land here. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up, but I don't think you can just turn around mid-flight, because now, how do you know you're not going to run into another person's flight course? How do you know you have enough fuel in the tank to actually get to the destination? And then, what do you do from there? I think you just need to follow the course that the computer has been set to. I'm assuming air traffic control from the Scotland destination is ready to receive them. So then you just land, and then you say, I'm sorry, you have to pay what you have to pay, and then get them safely the next day or the next flight out. I don't think you can turn around mid-flight. That's just me.
I still think you can land at your closest affiliate airport, and when you figure out you're making a mistake, you try to stop making the mistake as soon as possible.
Again, we can go on and on about this. I just, again, like all I can think about is looking outside, landing in a totally different country. You can't even read the signs of the airport because you are now in Germany in the contiguous European Union versus going into Scotland, which is north of where you're supposed to go. But I guess without the information and more details on exactly what happened, I just don't understand. But again, I thought this was an interesting story to discuss because I know I made a mistake. I put in the wrong address in the GPS, but I think like half hour into it, when all of a sudden it's not what I'm thinking, I'll realize it if I'm going somewhere where I've never gone before. But these are pilots. Like, this is your livelihood. Like, you're supposed to know directions. Like, this is not like an individual who's never been somewhere before and you're traveling there for the first time. I mean, your job is to know the United States. You're supposed to know geography. You're supposed to know something as simple as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and you're just relying on strictly just coordinates. And again, I guess that just tells you how much technology is and why you always need humans, and you can't replace humans with robots and stuff, because stuff like this will happen. I don't know. I'm off my soapbox.
I agree.
Hey, mistakes happen. At the end of the day, no one got hurt. That's what I care about.
But did you die?
Did somebody lose their job?
Yeah, they probably lost some jobs in this situation, but nobody died.
All right, so we're getting close to 11:30. I know you're still doing your shift, Christopher. Why don't we do our normal wrap up? So let's talk about things that we can make sure that the audience leaves with us for today. So we will start this off with Christopher. What are some things you feel that people can leave with your story today?
Well, it's just interesting to know that if you like a biological child, it can happen. Technology and advancements in science are there. If you're having trouble, look into it.
Marvin?
Research and research studies are key to life in the United States, because whenever you have certain drugs, whenever you have certain scenarios, we like to do tests. We like to have hypotheses, and we want to do the scientific method to get to the best answer. So it's important to sign up if you're willing and you're able. And I'm appreciative that our country does these tests before they give you certain guidelines. So kudos to them.
And for me, when you're going to go to a certain destination, make sure you double and triple check what you put into your GPS. And do not 100% rely on technology. Use some common sense. Use some critical thinking. Just because you're able to just put in coordinates into a system and go on autopilot doesn't mean that you need to. At least in the bare minimum, just look at the map, at least, once every 30 minutes just to make sure that you're going in the right direction. Because if you would have done that and he simply would have just looked at the map of where he was going to, he would have realized, wait a minute, I'm not going into Scotland. I'm going across the English Channel. I'm going into continental Europe. This doesn't seem right. So
Wait, I think you just messed up too, my friend.
what?
I think their destination was Germany, and they went to Scotland first.
No, I think the destination was supposed to be Scotland, and they went to Germany.
I see how easy it is to get switched up.
I didn't mess up. That was you.
It says the normal flight route is from London to Germany.
Instead of Germany.
Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there.
So my point is, again, if you're going to be carrying hundreds and thousands or hundreds and hundreds of people on a plane, make sure you put the right coordinates into the system and double check.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
What's going on for the end of the week? What are you planning, Marvin?
I am trying to get my my rental property on the market. That's my goal. Get it on the market.
Were you able to finish all your renovations that you wanted to do?
Pretty much. I'm pretty much all done. I took some pictures. I'm going to get it posted online, and then we'll see who bites.
All right, cool. What about you, Christopher?
Work, and more work.
I think I echo that as well. It's so different podcasting on a Monday versus a Thursday. I feel like when we podcast on a Thursday, it's like, up next day is Friday, and then up after that, then it's the weekend. But now it's like, man, this is the beginning of the week. I still have 4 more days to go. So we'll have to revisit that. All right. Another awesome episode. Thank you guys again. MBP crew, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to whatever podcast medium you prefer. Also, if you want to have any conversation and dialogue outside of this podcast, feel free to email us at marcelinbrothers@gmail.com or leave a comment in whatever podcast venue you are currently subscribed to. And without any other bits of comments, it is 11:23 on 4/1/2019, and we are out, gentlemen. Until next time.
Later.
Peace.